for Zinni62 Media, working my way through my 2024-2025 watch list. A couple more weeks to go, and I'm going to start with a couple players that are both big fellas, big guys, large human beings. I'm going to start with a player who's an HBCU prospect, Darren Cook, and he's one of the things that's becoming more and more of a rarity, the true nose tackle. He's listed at 6'3". He's probably maybe 6'2 and 5/8, 6'2 and a half, somewhere in that range. Listed at 315. That's probably about right. 312 to 316, somewhere in that range. But the shocking thing is when you look at him, and this is one thing that has changed over the years, is that he looks surprisingly fit. So he looks like he could still put on another 10, 15, maybe even more, and it wouldn't hurt him in any way. Had a really good year last year, had 19 solo tackles, 11 assists. 8.5 of those were tackles for loss, which is a really good number, and it's what you're looking for very often especially from a player that is often fighting double teams. 3.5 sacks. Had 2 sacks against Boise State right out of the box, and I thought he was off to a monster season. Then he only had another half sack against Morgan State, and he chipped in 1 more sack against NC Central. So not quite the monster year that I was anticipating with 3.5, but still solid from once again a player who's very often facing a center and a guard. Things that he can work on, like a lot of guys who are bigger guys, if he starts playing, with his back starting to sort of rise up away from that nice flat 90-degree angle, becomes less effective. You'd love to see him work even harder on conditioning, though he's a fairly well-conditioned athlete. But if he could do that, marry up his hands to his hips and feet, use his hands more violently and more often to disengage and shock blockers, and last but not least, at times, though you're looking for an Aaron Donald type, he's not that kind of guy. But if he could occasionally not attack the whole guy, occasionally maybe when there's an opportunity, slip through, as opposed now times obviously we're supposed to hold the point, but in the passing game, there's opportunities for him to go ahead, I think, and disengage a little more quickly, a little more actively, and work his way upfield. He's a good athlete. I'm fascinated to see exactly how he tests, because I don't think he's going to be a 5 flat or even a 5'1" guy, but I think he's a sub 5'2", like he's in that maybe 5'1" to 5'16", 5'17" range, which once again on a guy who I think could play at close to 330 pounds is still good. I'll be fascinated to see just how he produces and then how he tests. And another guy for whom you don't get really stats at all for offensive linemen, but Jared Penning, of course, the younger and somewhat quieter brother of Trevor Penning, is a very, very interesting prospect. Once again, another tall guy. He's probably going to come in at 6'5 and 3/4, 6'5 and somewhere from about 6'5 and 3/8 and 6'5 and 3/4 probably. And once again, another guy that, despite the fact that he's well over 300 pounds, still looks like he put on more weight and it wouldn't hurt him at all. My guess is that he could probably carry well into the upper 3 teens without it hurting him, maybe even slightly more. He started his career at guard, and then after having a couple of really good years at guard, moved out to play tackle. I think he can do both. I think he can play a right tackle or right guard, depending on what you want him to do, close to equally well. He made last year a lot of All-American teams. He was 4th team for Phil Steele, hard grader. Also 2nd team All-Mountain, Missouri Valley Conference. He also was a 3rd team for the Stats FCS. He was also a person on the 1,000-person watch list for the East West Shrine Game. Decided to come back for a redshirt year. Also was on the watch list for the Senior Bowl last year. He'll be on it again this year. Was a player that in 10 games, he does a lot of things well, but particularly gets movement in the run game. And growth areas for him, sort of similar to what I just said about the last player, getting his hands and feet really working together a little more in synchronicity. I'd like to see him be more forceful in the way he fires his hips out. And once again, he's a taller guy. He's over, almost 6'6". So I know it's a little bit of a challenge over what a shorter player does. But I'd love to see him sink down and really sort of drive people, even in pass pro. Pass pro's not passive, right? Duke Manyweather and my other friends. So he's got all the things you're looking for. Obviously, he's physically, you know, exactly what you're looking for. He can play two different positions at a high level. I'm basically talking about, tightening the smallest parts of his technique, but it's there, right? If he does do those things, he'll be drafted. Like, he's another player. Once again, you can't be sure, but his brother obviously was an early draftee. He's not quite as athletic from, once again, just watching him, maybe as his brother, but he's a good athlete. He's an above average athlete at the position, especially for guard, but even as a right tackle, I think he's an above average athlete. So, he's a player that I think if he tests, let's just say slightly above average, not freakishly, but let's say he tests 5'11", 31.5-inch vert, a 9.3 in the broad. He cranks out 25, 26 reps and moves well, right? You look at him through all the drills and you think this guy is a mover. I think he doesn't get out of the fourth or fifth round. And if he tests super well, if he tests close to his brother, then now we're talking, third, maybe even late second. He's not quite Trevor, but he's a good player. And I like good players. So I will have two more for you tomorrow that I will be wanting to discuss. Once again, Bill Carroll for the 860 Media, working my way through my 2024 watch list for the season and the draft to follow. I'll have two more for you tomorrow. See you there.